Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not in. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slater Jackson, and for you freaking motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. It is the first episode of Heauxvember, so anybody who's new to that concept, go back till last year to figure out what I'm talking about. I'll still explain. So Heauxvember is all about sexual freedom. It's all about learning new things about sexuality, essentially what you learn on the podcast in general, but we just focus on all the positive things, good light conversations, and just having fun and enjoying the people that's here. It's also kind of like a family reunion too. So there's going to be voices that you've heard early on in the season, some more recent. It's all about, coming back, enjoying the end of the year, and just enjoying life. That's what Heauxvember is all about. It's greatness, it's sexual health, sexual wellness, sexual freedom. Today is actually Friday on the day that we're recording this. And for Fridays, for those who don't know this, it's always Free Titty Friday. So if you're not planning on lifting the shirt, showing off the titties, if you're not trying to free the girls and free the guys, free the things that's on your chest, the nipples, free the nipples. Nipples is not a bad word. If you out here trying to free the nips, do so. Let them out. Let them hang. Let them be free. Even if it's on a Wednesday, because if I'm not mistaken, this episode is releasing on a Wednesday. It's still a free Titty Friday. So what you doing? I know after I'm done recording today, the shirt is coming off. I'm going to enjoy my weekend with the titties out because I'm grown, okay? And so are you. Thank you for the PSA. But with me today, I have... Don't judge me. Okay. So I have Melissa with me, and we will have Nene joining soon. Y'all may not know who Nene is yet. For those who don't know, when it comes to the Heauxvember and the coming together as a family and doing this reunion, those who have completed like intake meetings and we've already had a conversation and they're planning on coming onto the show, then they're always invited to Heauxvember activities. So some of the voices you haven't heard yet, but you will hear them. So subscribe today so you can hear those conversations too. But until Nene comes here, we'll still have this conversation. But Melissa is here. Melissa's from The Talkative Introvert. If you don't know the voice, if you don't know the person, where have you been? Okay? Like, she introduced me to Kylo Ren, okay? Like, we had a whole conversation about how sexy Master Chief's voice is, and also those helmets. And we also had other conversations about sex trafficking in California. That's episodes from last year. Just catch up, people. If you don't know Melissa, where have you been? If you don't know the podcast, The Talkative Introvert, where have you been? But other than that, Melissa, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. You know what? You brought up Master Chief. My husband and I started playing Halo. Well, he's already played it, but I started playing it and I was like, oh, love it. Love it.
Right. Oh, just sculpted so very well. Oh, let me not go back into that conversation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that episode released like earlier this year. I think that was May, or was it April? It was some month. It was some month of 2023. So, Melissa, who are you? What's the great things about you?
Oh, geez. I'm just a normal person. No, I am. I don't know what is normal anymore. No, like you said, host of the Talkative Introvert podcast, where we pretty much talk about anything and everything. My podcast kind of turned quite a bit. It used to be just about introverts, but now it's like that subject's a little boring.
Oh no.
So much you could talk about introverts. I mean, it's still, a big part of who I am as a person. I'm very, very introverted, but I also just love to talk, hence the name. So it's just subjects about anything and everything. So if you guys are interested, definitely check it out. Vernon was on there. I still need to get you on for this season.
Hey, I'm here.
So busy. So busy.
The podcasting life when you also have another job, it's
hard. I don't know how you do it. You're like on top of it. You're spinning out episodes like nothing.
I would say a lot of that is because I have to do the double up on these recordings, because if not, I will be underwater. I told myself when I first started, oh, look, Nini's here. I told, hold up, she's coming in. But while she's coming in, I told myself that what I want to do to keep myself from like stressing out too much is to be as proactive as possible. Because I know that life tends to happen with me, and when life happens. So I do my best to mitigate that by doing things a lot early, most definitely if it's something that I'm passionate about, and if I have control over the scheduling, I just knock it out, because otherwise I will be in my bed crying, why can I not get things right? And I don't like to be that depressed. So
no, not at all.
Not at all. Nini, hey.
Hey, I'm so sorry. My internet started to go crazy, and I'm like, no.
Right. Well, just to let you know, we are in the midst of recording already, but you're good. We're still at the beginning.
Sorry.
We are at the beginning, girl. We're at the beginning. I already gave a brief introduction about who you are and when they'll start hearing your voice on season 3, because bitches, it will be a season 3. Season 4 is still questionable, y'all. I made an announcement about what season 4 gonna look like, but y'all, I got a lot of transitions going on, but you will still love season 4 whenever I get around to that. But right. Nini, we're just doing some intros. As you can see, this is Melissa, the host of the Talkative Introvert. We love her. She's greatness.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So Nini, since we're doing intros, who the fuck are you?
Yes. Well, hey, I'm Nini. AKA the spiritual strategist. I am a digital marketing specialist who specializes, of course, in digital marketing, but I put a little twist to it. So I take spirituality and mix it with marketing, because if you notice a lot of things, when it comes to marketing, it's all about your journey, the buyer's journey, and companies taking that specific journey with you in the buying process. And so with me, it's kind of the same thing, except for like I'm selling kind of like life lessons and, stuff about the universe and things that, people may think, she's a little crazy, but
No, you're not crazy. Plus, I accept all crazies, because look, they be knowing a lot more shit than I be knowing. So teach me the crazies.
Right, I feel you. Yes, and I have a little one, Araya. She's 5, going on 23.
I'm done.
I love that.
And is.
And I love that you mentioned that, because that kind of brings us into the conversation of what today is all about, which is related to parenting. And you already know, Vernon over here is not trying to raise anybody's kids, not even my own at this point in my life. I might be interested in doing the parenting route in about 2-3 years. We'll see how that looks, because, but we will be talking about parenting, and you were like the best source of some of the conversation here, because I know Melissa currently does not have any children. If I remember correctly, not trying to push one of those little motherfuckers out.
Yeah.
No, thank
you. So I feel as though your perspective will be much needed for the audience, most definitely in terms of being a sexual parent, because for me, I feel like many people of today's age will be a lot more healed and comfortable with having those conversations about sex if they experience a healthy sexuality within their own homes from what their parents portrayed, rather than being so reserved or very tight-knit. Not saying parents should be out here fucking in front of their kids, because if that's happening, we need to have another conversation.
Right.
I'm calling the law.
I'm screaming, right.
But in terms of playfully playing with each other in a sexual way, that can be pecks on the cheek, maybe even an ass slap from here and there, and having those conversations of like consent within parenting spaces, like, "Oh, you looking cute today, can I give you a kiss?" or something like that, to show that you can still ask for something that you want for some with somebody that you've been with for such a long time. What's your take on that? And of course, Melissa, as the parent of the non-parents around, well, you are dog parents, so you're closer to parenting than I am.
Sure.
So.
A little controversial.
So what's y'all's perspective on just having that space of sexual freedom while parenting?
I will say it's difficult. And in the beginning, it's really hard to navigate. I think it's easier for people when they have like multiple kids and they kind of know, like, all right, we can go do the do. But I will say for us in the beginning, it was super hard because number one, our old house, our landlord wasn't doing what he was supposed to. So we had a situation where we had to move Araya in our room because her room, had mold and stuff, and she was a baby. So I will say, like, for the first 2 or 3 years of her life, like, she kind of got used to staying with us. So it was definitely one of those situations where once we moved, we snuck off into our own little room when she was asleep. Like, all right, she's asleep, let's go. And as far as like showing affection now, I think because we're a very much an affectionate household, like we, give Araya kisses and stuff. And now she'll be like, ew, smoochy kisses. But she understands that it's nothing like, it's just like, showing love to each other and stuff like that. She's a little girl, so of course, she thinks everybody and kisses and stuff is gross. But she doesn't mind, like, when we give her kisses and stuff. So I really think it's just parenting dynamics and, like, how you express your love and stuff like that, even around your kids. I will say, like, again, like, having sex initially when you have your kid, especially your first child, it's navigating. It's like, oh snap, because like, there will be times you're in the middle of it and then they wake up or they come knocking on the door and you're just like, go away. So in those cases, like, and now we're in the mode of she's 5. So now, like, if we need our alone time or whatever, or if we have to, bring her to a babysitter, we're like, we're not going to be gone for long. Mommy and daddy just need their time and stuff like that. And she's been begging for a little brother. So we're like, we gotta get it in if you want one.
Give us the opportunity to make this happen. Mommy and daddy gotta make a call, okay? We'll be back in like 2 hours or so.
Go to your auntie's house, we'll be back for you.
I'm done. I love that though. So have y'all ever like just been like here's go to the babysitter or to a family member just so that y'all can engage in sex? Or
Absolutely.
I support. I support
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really just, I think it goes back to your relationship as well, realizing like, okay, we have kids, but you know, we're still needing our time as, you know, husband, wife, fiance, boyfriend, girlfriend, like whatever the situation is. That time is equally important, you know, because if we're not functioning, then it's gonna display to the kids, and then, you know, a cycle, you know, emerges. So I feel like if we're still taking that time to be like, you know, go to the babysitter, you know, and taking that time together, like it's important. And, you know, you have to let your kids know, like, especially when they get to the age of comprehension, you know, letting them know like, hey, you know, we just need some time to make, you know, for us to have some fun grown-up time.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, at least for myself, hindsight wise, I don't know what my mom and stepdad sexual relationship was like, and I don't care to know. But I kind of wish that they forced myself and my brother to be outside of the house a lot more. When we were a little bit younger, like elementary school age, so that they can have a lot more alone time rather than like, of course, I always want to get outside of the house. I don't mind going to my auntie's house because look, that's where the games are, that's where the parties are, and that's also where I don't have to worry about cleaning up anybody's mess. So of course, let me go to these places. Like just listen to you say how you just literally was like, all right, here, go to the babysitter, and y'all getting it on. I'm like, that could have been something that I would have been okay with. As a child. Like, what about you, Melissa?
No, I totally agree. Like when you said that, I was like, yeah, they need their time alone. They need, because I have like multiple nieces and nephews, and they need constant attention, like constant attention. And, you know, kids, like I know I don't have my own kids, but like as a former child, you know, like I remember when my parents like would argue, or when they're not seeing eye to eye to things. Like we're, you know, kids are very observant. They see what's going on. They know when their parents are not getting along, or they're fighting, or what have you. And so having that time where you can just, you know, unwind and have like your special alone time together, I think that's super important for sure.
So, I've been seeing a lot of things out about positive parenting and whatnot, and just those different formulas for parents to take to make sure that their child is bright as well as respectful in society and all those great things. Are there any particular formulas that you use for yourself, Nini, or any parenting resources that you are aware of that can help people who are earlier on in their journey to start figuring out who they are as parents versus who they were without the child? Because there's a huge difference that a lot of people don't step into, and it annoys me because I'm like, look, that's like when people be like, you cannot be doing wifely or husband duties for somebody that's your boyfriend and girlfriend. I get that. The same thing, you can't be doing single shit when you're a whole ass parent. So are there any resources that you know of, or any formulas that has helped you in the past that other new parents might need?
I don't look anything up. I'm not gonna hold. Well, I do sometimes when like I find that Araya is doing something that I'm like, is that normal? But I'm not typically the type of parent that looks things up. I feel like my parenting style is very much based off of how I was raised and the things that I don't want for my kids. I've come from a very abusive background, parenting wise, and there was just some things that was like, when it comes to manners and everything like that, that was an issue. Naturally, we kind of just told her, like, you know, now we don't tell her to say yes ma'am or no ma'am, because I wasn't raised like that. We were raised in the North and not the South. that was foreign to me when I moved here, and I was like, yes, ma'am, huh? I just said yes, and I thought that was okay. But it's more of like when I see it, then I address it, and I'm not one of those. I'm not a helicopter parent, but I'm not one of those like, oh, don't do that again. Like one of those that'll get overly like hyped. Like I'll just sit and tell her like, don't do that. I'll explain to her like why she's wrong, or like her dad will explain it to her. I'm not the disciplinary. I'm just gonna let you know that now. Brendan is more. I just simply like talk to her, right? It's not really like a bad child. She just has a lot of energy, which I guess I expect for a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a, when I see it, then we'll address it and, make sure that she understands what she's doing wrong. Or like if there's something like teaching her like how to sit down in dresses and stuff, or different things like that, it's just talking to her. And if she has questions, like, either I'll answer it, or her dad will. But I just kind of just go off of how I was raised and what I would do and what I wouldn't do again.
I feel like it's so difficult, like there's just so many things out there, and like, one article will say like do this, but then an article's like, this is why you shouldn't do this,
right?
So like, what are you supposed to do?
Right. And it's just like, when you do look at those things, it's like your child might fit in some of those categories, but then it's just like, I know my child doesn't do that or that, So, and I think that's why I also don't really look it up, for those types of things, because it's like, I think they're just going off of a generalized consensus, I guess, of what they feel like should be going on in the household, versus what is actually going on in the household. And kids do different things, and there's different reasonings on why they, act out, or what's really going on, from either like something that might be going on mentally, physically, or even bad behavior stemming from parents who may not even know that they're exhibiting these behaviors for their kids to pick up on.
That's for myself, when I think about me as a future parent, I think of myself as more so focusing directly on who this child is, learning who they are, appreciating who they are, and just catering my approach directly to that child in particular. Even if I do have more than one, just trying to maneuver, like, yes, a lot on the brain to try to, manage everything and treat everybody differently. But I also think that if I can do that in having multiple friendships, I feel like I can do that when it comes to a child. Granted, the child, their personality will change throughout the years, and I have to adjust to that. But at the same time, when it comes to child rearing, I feel as though it would be a lot simpler, rather than trying to, having healthy conversations is always good, because that's a skill that will help them in the future, because we have to communicate with people regardless of what we're doing. So I do want to instill in my child, like, hey, this is how you have this conversation about when something's bothering you, when you're hurt or anything like that, versus always having to yell at the child. But I think outside of that, when it comes to the different approaches, I just think that a lot of the formulas that they try to put out there, there's no evidence to say that they really work. Honestly, they're just like, oh, this is the suggestion. And then 3 years, 10 years from now, you realize, oh, wait, no. That's like with the thing about, oh, we need to make sure that everybody's a winner. And now we have a generation of people who really does not understand how beneficial it is to lose.
Listen. And that's what me and Brendan was talking about, because Araya plays softball. And even though she plays, with the 4 to 7-year-olds, I think that's the age group, it's not, we're thinking it's competitive, and it's not competitive whatsoever. Like, even at their young age, they get the notion of competitiveness. They want to win and stuff like that, but it's not. And now it's like, not saying that it's not okay, to lose and stuff like that. But like, I also feel like you need to teach your children both. And they're not really teaching them at their age winning or losing. They know it, but they're not really teaching them or helping them understand exactly what it is and what it is to be a team player and what it is to like go through, oh, we just lost, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, because it's really unrealistic, right? Not everyone gets a trophy. Not everyone, you know, scores the job that they want. So it's kind of a bit of a disservice to the kids to give everyone a trophy or a gold star.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, I get the mindset of you just want people to have fun. Yes, then have a league that's just about the fun. Don't call it a league at that. Say, hey, we're going to the park to play kickball and we're going to enjoy, we're just going to kick the ball as many times as we want. We're going to run around. If you're out, you're out. And we're just going to keep doing this until everybody gets tired. That's great. Right. That's fun. That's amazing. But if you have people, well, most definitely young kids, in something that they feel as though that they're going to be competing in, and they're going to engage in that, they're going to want to know, did I win? Because let's be real, kids are exposed to games where they can lose. They play a lot of little games on the phone where, oh, if you mess up, strike out, or you'll lose. So they understand the concept of losing. So and most definitely they can count.
Right. And let me tell you, I am not paying all this money for you to get a participation trophy, for everybody to get a participation trophy. That's cute and dandy, but I'm paying you money so you can win something.
Look.
Okay, we talking scholarships, everything.
You better give them a little necklace that said thank you for trying, and just keep it moving. If everybody needs to get something, that there you go, get a little certificate, and we'll walk away with our trophies. Thank you so much. It was great playing with you. You broke bitches. Like, thank you. Like, what are we doing? What we're not going to do is that. So, But anyways, another thing, because we are in an age where, and I'm sorry, I'm sipping on my drink a little bit earlier than I'm supposed to be. But we live in an environment where there are a lot of people who have issues with having those conversations about sexuality with their children. And some people, I get the discomfort. Some people are unable to have those conversations, but based off of some experiences that they had in their past. So talking about sex is traumatizing, triggering, or what have you. I get that for those individuals, but for those who just don't want to talk about sex because I don't know, or they feel as though their child is not going to be this type of child, what advice or what kind of resources, if you know any, do you have for those parents? And Melissa, you can even step in on this one too, but what do you think can encourage parents to just expose themselves to different understandings of sexuality, or different resources that they can look into so that they can understand, like, hey, just because my child is uncomfortable in their skin, I can still love them. I can understand what it means to be trans, all those things.
Well, they can listen to your podcast.
Better drop
Period.
it. You better drop it.
Period.
I love that. Yes, that's the only answer.
That is a good question. And again, I never had to talk with my mom because she was scary. That was one of those topics where it was just like, don't get pregnant or I'm gonna kill you. And I'm just like, okay.
Yes, not that, doing that.
Right. So it was kind of like, I just got everything from school. My mom didn't talk about it. Like, I know when my sister asked for birth control, I left the kitchen because I just... No, I wasn't ready. Like, and then I know how my mom was with me versus how she was with my sister. So like, after she said yes to my sister, I knew that like, just don't, like, it was just gonna be bad. So I was just like, let me leave. However, speaking with Brendan on topics of sexuality, especially with the younger generations coming out and, you know, expressing they feel like they're not in, you know, a male body or a female body, especially at a young age. We've kind of just, if we're kind of just like right now, Araya's in this stage where it's kind of like she's okay. She knows, like, you know, she hasn't come to us with anything out of the normal or anything like that. I feel like when she gets older, now we're just making sure that she's comfortable with talking to us about anything in general. Letting her know, like, yes, we're your parents, but don't hesitate to come to us when it comes to, like, if you get in trouble, or, you know, if something happens in school, or, you know, even if we make you upset, like, you know, come and tell us, come and talk to us so we know and we can correct the problem. So we're kind of shaping that foundation now. So that way, when she does get older and these questions do come up, it's not like, oh, I can't talk to my mom or my dad about it. Like, you know, come sit down. Even if we do get mad at the end of the conversation, like now, if she does get in trouble, we'll give her a hug and be like, you know, we still love you and stuff like that. Like, just making sure that she knows that, you know, no topic is not off, you know, we won't explore every topic. Even if she brings up something now, and we're not ready, we do let her know, like, you're not ready for this conversation now because we know, like, you can't comprehend everything. But when you get older, then we'll, you know, re-explore the conversation.
I think that's awesome.
Agree. That is a beautiful thing. Like, honestly, just from hearing that, I can tell she's going to grow up to be an advocate for herself. Because when you have that freedom to not necessarily like yell at your parents, but comment on how you feel about how something that they said make you feel, and that is respected and understood, it reinforces that idea that I can speak up for myself, that I can advocate for myself, and I can just have these conversations with people regardless of where they, you know, feel. And she also will understand, you know, the concept of healthy dialogue. So if someone goes above and beyond or on a lesser vibration than that, she can understand, okay, well, clearly we cannot have this conversation because this is not how it goes with my parents.
Right. You're at a 10, I need you to bring it down to a 3. Okay.
Where you at here? So I think that is a wonderful skill to develop at such a young age. And I love that you mentioned that you leave yourself open to the possibility of something. And I think that's where many of those parents fail, is that they are not open to understand that their child is not going to fit the image that they've made for their child. And that's where many, even from my own parenting experience, like, you know, being a child and being raised, that oftentimes my parents didn't see me outside of themselves. Like, yeah, I might look like you, but I'm not you.
Exactly.
Like, I have my own experiences. I've grown to appreciate the things that you've taught me as well. But at the end of the day, I operate differently. And if you don't see that, then okay, like, we can have a conversation if possible. So I think that's a wonderful skill to develop at such a young age.
So let me know, like, we took her to see The Little Mermaid, and it just kills me. It was hilarious. I asked her, you know, how did she like the movie? And she turned and looked at me and literally said, "Mommy, she gave her voice up for a boy." And I was like, so I don't have anything to really worry about right now. Like, she's gonna be okay, but I know to keep that conversation open. At least I know she knows, like, she's not gonna just give up, like, you know, her talent, or at least right now, in the mind frame that she is right now, she knows, like, all right, this isn't what's supposed to be.
Yes, young lady, I love it for you. Yes. She said, "I'm not going to be Ariel."
Right. What we're not gonna do is that.
Look, I don't mind being a mermaid, but to give my voice up for a motherfucker that he ain't paying my bills, hold up.
And I just met him. I ain't even meet him yet, for real.
And she's only 5.
Yeah,
right?
She's only 5. Yeah, she'll be 6 in September.
She really is 5 going on 23.
Right?
I love that. So cute.
She really is.
But yeah, I think many parents, any parents who are listening to this episode, I think if you are uncomfortable about sex, engage into that discomfort and understand what about it that's making you uncomfortable. And sometimes if it is something that is like traumatically based, you have to address that so that you can be helpful to your child in their process of understanding their sexuality, because many of us don't realize that the teachings that we received as children, most definitely if it relates to covering yourself up and all this other stuff, is from people who are acting out of trauma response.
Yeah.
And I know like parents always want to be like, you were asking earlier if there's any like resources or like things that they can like go to. But I think even if you don't know, like as a parent, if your child comes up to you and they're like, I think I'm, insert here. I think a beautiful thing is, even if you don't know right now, you're not prepared, you don't know where to go for resources, a beautiful thing is just to research it together. Be like, I don't know what that means right now, but I'm happy to go through this with you and figure out what this means for you and for our family and whatever, So just because you don't know right now doesn't mean you can't.
Right. I said I'm going to use that, especially when she gets older. And I don't know certain things. I never thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah, look at that.
Right. Period.
May not be a parent, but I have something to say.
But no, that's a really, really good tip for real. And I think it would definitely make the parent more comfortable and the kids more comfortable and make them feel like, okay, so now I'm going to open up to you more because I know that we're going to look this up together. And I'm not necessarily just going through this by myself because you just brushed me off.
Yeah.
And
it can be kind of scary, like, because for us, I don't know if are you a millennial like we are? Okay, because like, for
I'm a 90s baby.
Sorry, I want to expose the age, but for us growing up, like it was just LGBT, right? Now there's a Q and an I and A, and now there's a plus. So it's like, what does that mean? What are these extra letters? Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out together.
Look, today I just learned of something new, which was omnisexual and scoliosexual. I cannot tell you in detail exactly what those are because it's still very new to me. So
I've heard of omni, but I haven't heard the scoliosexual. Scolio? Okay, I haven't heard of that one, but I have heard of omni.
Write that down. I've
very
never
interesting.
Heard of that.
Like you learn new things.
Right.
And for somebody who's been deep into sexuality for all this time, I'm still learning too. So there's a level of ignorance that people have to be welcome and open to when it comes to these spaces, because we don't know everything.
Right.
And I think that helps. And I truly, that was the best advice to give.
It really was.
I remember I remember a friend of mine, he reached out to me and he didn't know exactly what he should do because his child reached out to him saying that he thinks that he's gay. And to him, he was like, Vernon, I don't know how to approach this because internally I want to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. But at the same time, he felt as though that he knew that his son knew exactly what he was talking about. He just didn't know how to have the conversation. So he did the best thing that he knew at the moment, which was, let me contact Vernon because this nigga might know. So I told him.
I'll circle back to you.
Shout out to the podcast.
Right. So I told him, well, first, your approach to it is reasonable because you understand what this world is. You understand how negatively people will approach your child solely because of their sexual expression and what they've mentioned to you. So you're acting out of reaction, out of protection. So that's understandable, but you have to recognize that that's on you. But you also have to be open to understanding exactly what your child is saying, because the kid only mentioned that, oh, I think I like boys. So does that mean do they actually like boys, like playing with them and, you know, enjoying time with them, having a good time, or are they attracted to boys? This can be something that they already know. It may be something that develops in time. It may be something that changed. You may end up being bisexual, but try your best not to fully sexualize your child as this is who they are as a sexual identity, but let them create that comfort zone for them at first, so that they can feel comfortable with you while you work on yourself to unravel that first response of wanting to shut that down, because again, that's one of those trauma responses. And then on top of that, I get sent out like a book that I didn't read it myself, but it was one of those things I found over the years. And I was like, try this book, see how that helps, and see how that can build that conversation between you two. And so far, haven't heard anything bad. So, you know, life is good. But like things like that happens. So like if you find yourself in those situations, you reach out to somebody who knows, as well as, like Melissa said, research it with your child. Try not to immediately go into the trauma response of trying to protect them from reality, because at the end of the day, if that's who they are, that's going to be who they are, and they need to have at least a safe space to always return home to. But yeah, a question that was sent in the makings of this episode that I found really fascinating, and I would love y'all's perspective on it. And it's, are children today less or more confused or misinformed about sex compared to older generations?
Are children less or more confused / misinformed about sex compared to older generations? That's a hard question, because like, I feel like there's so much information out there with like the internet, social media. So to a point, yeah, they're probably more informed. Or what's the question? Less or more confused?
Yeah, less or more. So
I feel like they're more confused because of the additional, like, you know, the omniscolio, all these other stuff, like trying to figure things out. Whereas the older generation, they were very black and white. But now that we're more open, people are more open sexually, they're discovering themselves, discovering like, you know, what they're into, what they're attracted to, and all that stuff. It's like, I feel like it is confusing, because children didn't really learn about sex necessarily until like, you know, grade school, maybe, when they talk about it, unless they're in a home where it's more open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I have to agree. Especially because labels is a thing for kids and basically almost for everybody. And even me and Brendan had the discussion of me figure out that I am bisexual. It came down to like, there's so many labels, like what do I fit under? Like what category do I go into? And I think that's really what confuses people nowadays, because they're trying to fit into a label just to fit into something. And back then, I think older generation, it was frowned upon, so it really wasn't like, oh, I'm this. Like you said, it was more black and white, like, you know, either you're straight or, you know, you're gay or whatever. And I think that now, especially with media and everything, and everybody putting it out in the media, and people are like, you know, especially when it comes down to like maybe boy and girl restrooms and different things like that. Number one, I feel like it's being like really, really kind of, I don't want to say forced, but it's being put into younger schools where people aren't really sure what it is. Like they understand like they're girl or boy. So I feel like now it's like, okay, I know that I'm a boy, but I feel like I know that I'm also a girl because I'm experiencing these feelings. Where do I go? and media can give you all of these tools and stuff like that. But when you go back home, where you might not have that education or you may not have that freedom, you're like, all right, I know that I'm this, but I can't, be like this at home. So it creates that level of confusion, that rebellion, and, anxiety and the depression, because it's like, I know that it's okay, but I also know that it's not okay. And I don't really know, what to do or who to talk to, in that kind of sense. So I think it is a little bit more confusing, especially for younger kids. I'm going to say like maybe middle school and under, especially like within those, groups of kids.
Yeah.
High school, you might have that confusion, but you have a little bit more of an understanding, or you might have a little bit, you have somebody outside of your family that you might be able to, talk to a little bit more.
You're a little more developed, right?
Right.
You're learning more about yourself as you get older. Whereas a kid, you're a kid. You don't, you still haven't figured out yourself. Your brain isn't fully developed yet.
Right.
There's still a lot of questions, and then you're constantly being bombarded by like media and social media, and your family's telling you this thing, but then social media is telling you this thing, and then your friends are telling you this thing.
Right. It's like, where do I turn to? What's the answer that people are looking for that yes or no answer.
Yeah,
I think so. That's going to create even more of the confusion too, because it's like I know, but I want that validation from somebody that I feel like is credible for me.
For me, I feel like in terms of like sexual identity, a lot of the youth, they're able to identify themselves a lot easier, and they don't lack that confusion on that part. But when it comes to sexual expression and how to interact and have these pertinent sexual conversations with their partners, completely confusing, because they are less, they receive less of that education than the older generations have, because over the years, sex ed has gotten dimmed down so much as we progress, depending on where you are within this country. But it's just been because they're not exposed to as much of the information, or of like condom usage, or what pleasure is, and seeking pleasure with your partners. It's a lot of confusing information that they're receiving, as well as the ideology that you do find in media. Like that makes them a lot more misinformed too. So like even within conversations I've had with some of my younger cousins about one of my cousins, he literally told me, oh yeah, there's a war against men, and you can't even look at women without being called not a pedophile, but a rapist. I was like, that's not true. Where did you get that from? Like, now we have to have a conversation, because what the fuck are you listening to, watching, reading? Because this is not it. Like, you can look at people, you can look at women, you can do these things. Now, if you make somebody uncomfortable by touching them, disrespecting their boundaries, and just say fuck your consent, now we have a different conversation. Then yes, you definitely are a racist. I'm not racist, a rapist. But if you're just walking in the hallway and you just lock eyes with somebody, no, you did not sexually assault this person. Like, who told you this? So like on that level, they are fully misinformed about a lot of things. And I will have to have that onus on the older generation for making it such. But in terms of who they are as a sexual being, like I'm bisexual, I'm queer, I'm trans, I'm gender non-binary. That generation, the younger generation, they're just like, bitch, I've been knowing who I was. Why are you late? And the older generations, of course, those who are within the queer community, they just like, yeah, I know who I am. And it's kind of like a solid thing. But outside of the queer spaces, the older generation is failing on recognizing sexual identity. And that's where I see it.
Right.
Yeah. So another thing, sex education. So, what do you think the impact of sex education is on our youth and who they are? Who they develop in for their future selves. Like even when it comes to Ari, when you think about her learning about sex ed in school, or even how you end up having that conversation with her, how do you think that will help her in her development?
I think that's a great question.
That's a hard one.
Right, it really is.
Because it depends on what they teach, because she's only 5. So by the time it's time for sex ed, which is like what, 6th, 5th grade, something like that.
I didn't get that information until middle school, so I don't really know when they really teach it.
Well, what would you want her to learn, I guess, from school?
Well, I'm a firm believer in the comprehensive approach. At least with this age, they're mostly focusing on consent and understanding that people are different. That can be, this family structure that includes 2 dads. This one has 2 moms. This one have 2 individuals who are non-binary, and they can express what that means. This person may have parental units or guardianship of grandparents rather than their actual parents, because just recognizing that there's different ways that families look, but they don't really talk about engaging in anything with contraception until like middle school and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right. I think starting off, that's good. Even possibly like the anatomy, because kids recognize parts too. So I think at least like the anatomy of it now would be helpful for it. As far as growing up in the contraception and stuff like that, I don't know if that really works. I think it really depends like on the parenting and stuff at home too, because you can tell your kid all day. Like I've been in school with kids, that we've taken the sex education class, but then like, by the end of the year they're pregnant, you know what I mean? You know about it, but you still didn't make that decision. And then I have to ask like, all right, did your parents reinforce it? Did, like there's other things that'll make a kid like, like I want a kid now and stuff like that. That'll just make them make those choices anyway. But at least now, I think studying the anatomy, how families, the different makeup of families, and different things like that, I think that's beneficial for right now. Everything else, I'm not sure. I haven't thought that far in my thought process, but I would think that like, leave that part mainly for like the parents, like, teaching the contraception and stuff. I feel like the parents could go a little bit more into detail and really fully grasp information better than it coming from like the teacher or something like that. I don't know.
It's rough because it's like, because school is hard, especially public school, because you get people from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, religious, and like, it's not a one size. Well, like, how do you create a one size fits all? Because, there's some people who don't believe in sex before marriage. There's some people who are like, don't even like believe in masturbation or like, just stuff like that. So it's like, how do you create one that fits all societies, all cultures, all backgrounds? That's beneficial for the kid, because for me, like, at least like I would have liked to been taught more about the anatomy. Like I was telling you in one of our episodes, like part of our sex ed was like our teacher gave us an envelope full of just like images of genitalia with like STDs and STIs and whatever. And I'm assuming it's to be a scare tactic, right?
Right, yeah. That's what I
also, like more than half the class probably already had sex. So they're like, whatever, okay.
Right.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
No, but that's real. Like, I think when it comes to those conversations, like, it is important for children to know the anatomy, proper names, and all of that, know about consent. And I really do think that parents do have that role that they need to perform for their children to educate them on the differences and like contraception and utilizing that, because it's not enough to say don't get pregnant or make sure you use these things when you yourself also push that message that, oh, well, it doesn't feel as good if you use a condom. So it's like there's a level of having honest conversations with children and young adults to let them know, hey, you're going to have these urges. You're going to want to engage in these sexual like experiences with other people. And when you do that, I want you to feel comfortable enough to have a conversation with me that you're planning on being sexually active.
Listen to me first.
Right. Please. So that I'm aware that this is something that you're looking to do. And then we can also reinforce the need for contraception. Talk about, hey, look, I know it may feel or seem easy raising you, but listen, motherfucker, it is not. So think about who you are and what we've been doing for the last 16, 17, 18 years. Do you want to experience that as well? Like, just be real with me right now. If you don't, please, 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 please use contraception. This is not me saying that I didn't want you as a child. You are a miracle.
Right. But I just want you to live a little bit, you know.
Enjoy life. Be able to be out here doing the things that your dad was doing at your age. And look, once you find the podcast that I started,
period.
And you just like, oh, daddy was a hoe. So look, I want you to experience the great things that life can bring. So in order for you to do that, you might want to ensure that you don't have that distraction or those things to keep you from moving forward. Because if you don't have those resources, I'm going to make sure my grandchild is taken care of. But I don't give a damn about you because you was doing grown folks things. I'm going to treat you like an adult.
Right, exactly.
My baby going to have all the food in the world. You might not go hungry, but I'm not paying your rent.
Now you got some responsibilities.
But like, just being real. But a lot of children need those honest conversations that reinforce the importance of taking safe sexual practices, being mindful of who they engage with, and establishing trust, and even ensuring that the person that they about to lay down with is going to provide pleasure. Because what we're not going to do.
Listen. Wouldn't that be tragic? Like,
look, let me find out I have a child and their sexual experience with their baby mom was mediocre. I'm going to be on them all the fucking time. So you mean to tell me I have a whole ass grandchild and you did not receive good sex? Is that what you're telling me? I am upset.
Nothing out of this.
So all that you brought me is a whole ass grandchild and you got no pleasure in it.
Right.
I feel some type of
I need you to go outside and find to understand what it is.
Wrap it up next time.
Oh God. That would be tragic.
It's so tragic. Like, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast or not, but I'm a firm believer that parents who've engaged in like sex and it was very bad, like very mediocre sex with their partner, and that's what conceived their child, they resent that child every single day because you were not brought into this world from a pleasurable experience. Like, how dare you become developed out of mediocre sex? What the fuck is you? Like,
right. I'm screaming.
Poor kid.
Poor kid. Not even their fault.
Right. They're gonna look at you like, I'm sorry.
Is that something you need to talk to dad about? Like, what? Like, or talk to mom about? Like, what? Why
It
would
was like, can you please just sign my field trip slip so I can
I just wanted to. I just came here for you to sign this paper. That's all.
That's all. That's
Go talk
all.
to Dad.
I'm sorry.
Look, walking to every meeting with the parents. Here's a slip for a therapist. Like,
Right.
got this from school with my report card. Here you go.
Now the kid is like, oh no, I got to be better than my pops now. Take it away.
Passive aggressive as fuck. I love it. Yes. If you are somehow a child listening to this podcast and you're at this point in the show, if your parents need therapy on those progress reports, bring the therapy slip with you. Hand it to them. It's like, this is something that somebody told me about. I don't know what it's about. I don't know. I can read it.
Right. But you guys,
Grades, here's a better help brochure.
Right. Here's a discount too. I don't know who gave it to me. I just found it on the street. Oh God.
They just said bring it to you, so I did. Here y'all go. Don't say I never brought you anything.
Exactly. So before we wrap up this episode, one of the things I wanted to touch base on is the concept that parenting means nurturing, and also what did we want as a child? Well, what is it that we wanted to receive from our parents as it relates to sex ed when we were children? So that's going to be the last two things. So let's go off of that.
Okay. What did you want as a child? You know, honestly, like, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like sex education stuff and coming from the parent. So my background, my parents basically said, don't have sex, don't have children, because my older sister was 16 and then my other sister was 18 and then I'm the last girl, and they're just like, don't mess up like your sisters, basically. That's my whole spiel that I got from my dad. But like, and my parents are also religious. My dad came from like a Catholic background, my mom's Christian, and like what I would have wanted, like, I understand that they have their values and their religious values, but it would have been nice, instead of having the scare tactic, but be like, sit me down, be like, hey, these are our values, this is why. Because I know for like my church, at least, they don't have premarital sex, but it could have come from a place of care and love, right? Like, you could have been like, we value this because we see the woman's body as a sacred vessel that should be saved for the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with, versus don't get pregnant like your sisters, like, it's two completely different things, right? So like, I feel like a lot of people who are scared to talk about it or don't want to talk about it, or as a taboo, tend to come from religious backgrounds, but there's still a way to talk about sex and still have your values. You know what I mean? And like, you can't say also from a religious thing, like, that sex is evil, sex is bad, because you had to have it to have me,
right?
Know? So like, for you to say that it's evil and bad makes it sound like, well, I came from a product of evil because you guys had sex to have me. Like, that's like what a kid could be thinking of. But if it came from a loving, aspect, then it's, I guess it'd be easier, more understanding, and I would be more inclined to, listen to my parents, or, something like that.
Right. I definitely agree with the same thing. I wish that I was able to talk to my mom more freely about sex, to be more educated instead of being afraid to have those conversations. Because when you do put it like, don't have sex, because, it doesn't really, it just instills fear. It doesn't teach me anything. And I'm not too much from a religious background. However, with, studying my spirituality and everything like that, I now understand, the concept of be careful who you lay with, because of who they've laid with before, or spiritually, like what kinds of like demons or kinds of things that they're dealing with, because they do, energy does transfer, and you can pick up certain things, like even somebody who may be dealing with depression, like, you know, it's easy for you to pick up on their depression as well. So I think more of a educational standpoint, or putting it in a way that we understand versus, all right, I'm just going to be scared because I don't want the consequences of what you might dish out back to me if I do these things. Like, really help me understand, and let's get to the meat and the bones of why right now as a child, or right now in the, well, not as a child, I hope not as a child, but like teenage years and going into like young adulthood and stuff like that, it'll be more comfortable. And now I'm looking at, you know, different people that I might encounter and like, yeah, I'm not going to go that route. You know, I think it'll be a lot more easier and more comfortable for, you know, the child, or, you know, whoever the, you know, well, the child, it'll be a lot more easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Plus, if you're like me as a kid too, the more someone tells me not to do something, the more I want to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And I know for myself, the one I would say I would have appreciated just a more open and loving conversation as well. Just to be like, okay, these are some things that I don't get. It's not that it's something bad, it's just I don't understand it. Or just having that space free to have these conversations without double standards, because most definitely with me being a guy, there was a lot of, you know, permission for me to be like out there and having sex with all these women, I guess, and having those kind of conversations, but then still telling me that women have to be like prudes essentially. And I'm like, the double standards itself just doesn't make sense to me. But also we're having the wrong conversations because I also have an attraction to guys too. So like, how can we have this conversation in a healthy way if we're not going to talk about it fully and be honest with it, and just have an open and safe space for correction on both ends? And I think that's the one thing I really wanted, is to be able to have a voice in the conversations, and not feel as though if I were to say something that doesn't fit the norm within whichever space that could have been, be it with uncles, older cousins, my mom, my dad, or what have you, that it would not have been an issue if I were to raise a question that does not fit the norm. So that would have been the thing that I would have appreciated the most as a young child. But
definitely the voice, for sure.
Yeah. And the last thing, the concept of parenting means nurturing. How do you feel about that?
I absolutely agree. I think with the absence of a nurturing parent, you know, that leads to a cycle that now your kids are going to go through and their kids are going to go through, because your kids don't know how to display it. They don't know how to display the nurturing aspects because they don't see it from the parent. And although they may get it from, like, you know, their friends or a friend's parent, it's still going to cause some sort of confusion and some sort of, you know, rebellion, because it's like, you can give me, like, my friend's parents can give me that nurturing aspect, but my own family can't. So I think it's very, very important to nurture, especially if you're worried about your child's behavior and stuff like that. You have to look at yourself to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to prevent these behaviors or correct these behaviors, and know that it won't be like a future problem where it won't continue to trickle down the line for the future.
100%. You got anything you want to add on that, Melissa?
Nope. You got it.
You said what needed to be said, and I agree with you. So on that note, thank both of you, Nini and Melissa, for coming on to the podcast to have this conversation with me. I greatly appreciate all of you. Well, both of you. I'm speaking like there's more than two people. There's numbers and words for these things. To the audience out there, thank you all so much for listening to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one has told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.soliloquy.com. That's www.heauxvember.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.